Laurie is a local chef whose mission is to help people achieve optimal health and well-being using the power of whole, natural, sustainably produced foods. She trained at the Natural Gourmet Institute for Health and Culinary Arts in New York City, and she offers personal chef services, whole food, event, catering, and cooking classes, in addition to consulting with several local school districts to improve the quality of food they serve. Welcome, Laurie. And next, I'd like to welcome Susan Rubin.
No, you're fine.
And, oh, you are very good. I didn't get a chance to talk to you before, so I'm so glad you're here. She's a filmmaker, a health professional and educator, a master composer, and enviro activist. And apparently she's friends with Laurie Gershgorn. And Susan is a food and environmental educator who utilizes words, film, and direct experience to empower and inspire others to create a healthier world. While she worked as a dentist in private practice in the 80s and 90s, she spent many hours each month on public outreach, making sure parents took good care of their kids' teeth. And in 1999, she created a school-based junk food awareness program. She established Better School Food, a coalition of health professionals, educators, and concerned parents, which worked tirelessly for school food reform. And she's gone on to do, she worked with school food and was featured in a documentary film entitled Two Angry Moms, and as well as a cameo role in Killer at Large, which called out the U.S. government on TV promotion of high sugar cereals. And since then, Susan has been involved in numerous community and school garden projects, including composting. Thank you very well. Thank you for joining us, Susan. Yes, we'll give one big round of applause because I've got two more great people to introduce to you, which is Lisa Rudley, and many of us here in Ossining know her. Lisa is the executive director and co-founder of the New York State Allies for Public Education, and she is our parent representative in the Ossining Union Free School District for Wellness and Communications Committee. Lisa is the mother of 3 children who attend the Ossining Public Schools. She's the executive director and co-founder, as I mentioned, of New York State Allies for Public Ed, which is a grassroots coalition of 50 parent and education advocacy organizations across New York State. She's the director of education policy for Autism Action Network and president of Ossining Citizens for Schools. In addition, Lisa serves on the Ossining School District's Wellness and Communications Committees as a parent representative. She received her MBA from Fordham and received a holistic health practitioner certification in 2008. In 2014, she was named Advocate of the Year, awarded by the New York State Association of School Business Officials and one of the Journal News People to Watch. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. And last but not least, we have Gina DeVito, who is the Assistant Director of Wellness Initiatives at the Open Door Family Medical Centers. Gina holds her Bachelor's of Science in Dietetics, Food, and Nutrition, and completed her postgraduate dietetic internship at Leaving College. Gina specializes in lifestyle modification, weight management, and family nutrition. She has experience counseling patients of a wide variety, including prenatal women, children, chronically ill patients, bariatric surgery patients, and professional and amateur athletes. She has over 10 years of experience in the fitness industry, having worked as a personal trainer, group exercise instructor, and fitness manager. Gina collaborates with a team of healthcare providers at Open Door, as well as partner organizations who share the common goal of making the members of our community healthier. So welcome to all of our panelists. Thanks so much. And as I mentioned, we have a hard out here at 9 o'clock. We like to leave a little bit of time at the end for people to ask individual questions, and we take a picture with the panelists. So I encourage you, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, be ready when I turn over the microphone in a minute. I'm going to ask an opening question to our panelists. And people usually save all of their questions for the last 2 minutes of our question and answer period. So I guess I'll start off with something. As I watch this, I'm a mother of 2 young children, and I imagine there are a lot of other parents in the room here. I would think this is a pretty self-selecting group who tries to make good decisions, and it's tough to know what are the right decisions to make, and then how do you tell children that that they can't make the choices that they are naturally inclined to want to make, whether it's in response to television ads or just what they see as most colorful and appealing and tasty and addictive. How do we fight that as parents? What are some good choices for us to make?
I'll just start off. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I was born in 1966, and I grew up predominantly I was a young toddler, and then in my age from 10 to 13, I was in the 70s and early 80s, and we grew up in a low-fat era, and really miscalculating what that really meant. So I've always battled weight my entire life, and so having children and trying to not make the same mistakes, it's been real difficult on some level by, as we saw in the movie, the advertising that's out there, the choices we have in school, and the choices that we have in everyday stores that we go to. So, you know, we're just trying, the best thing we do, as I do as a parent, is to describe, you know, the challenges that I have and what good foods are and how it makes them feel. And what's really important is how do you feel and what you eat, and so really having them recognize that.
So I have 3 daughters, and I feel like I'm like the wise old crone here, because my girls are now 25, 23, and 18, and I think looking back, I mean, I spent more than a decade literally fighting school food. Back in 1999, I remember telling a principal in my school district that obesity was going to bankrupt our economy, and that was before we really had fat people, you know, and so I was kind of like ahead of this curve. But the most important thing I did for my family and that I do now is I cooked with my kids and I ate dinner at home with my kids. I had no scale in the house, and it was about food. So they grew up with an understanding and appreciation for what real food was. And now I've got one on the West Coast who's 25, one in New York City, 23. They cook. And I look at that as a lifelong skill that they have for good health. The 18-year-old, she's still a work in progress, but it's a long, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's true. I too have 3 children, not too far behind you, Susan. 23, 18, and 16, to be 16. And it's been an uphill battle as a parent because you're working against the convention. And, you know, I used to always say, and still do, we're swimming upstream against the current. But like homework, or any of those other decisions, too much screen time, video games, whatever it is, you need to set your boundaries and you need to be firm. And they need to know from birth, you know, nursing, and from a very, very small age, what real food tastes like. When you garden with a child and they see a cherry tomato or string bean, and they eat it right out of the garden, that's where it starts. You can't be programming that child to, you know, everyone in the video that had struggles, one of the kids said it in the beginning, they had to be deprogrammed because that's what the subconscious went to for comfort. I too, you know, 62 I was born, and one day, years later, when I was, you know, changed my diet and completely, I felt hungry and my mind went like to an Entenmann's muffin. And that was like, you know, after I was on a health food kick, you know. So it takes a long time, but you stick with it. And I think kids aren't naturally drawn to fake food. I think we teach them as a society to, you know, want to have the crap. We have to get out of the bag, the box, the bottle, and the can.
I agree with everything that everyone said so far. And I don't have my own children. I've had hundreds of children patients over the years, and I think the film points out that there's no marketing out there for healthy foods and natural foods, and that's the role that we can play. Not only as parents, but as community healthcare providers, as school-based providers, whoever it is that is touching the lives of the children in our communities, really need to play an active role in educating them and promoting all the healthy foods and making those positive correlations with healthy foods. Like they make them better at the sports that they love to play, and they give them lots of energy throughout the day, and they help them to be smarter and learn more.
Yeah, I really liked the idea of when a celebrity advertises junk food, they also have to advertise a carrot. That was a good one. Anybody want to kick us off with the first question or comment? Oh, very good. Okay, let's see. See, the library got an extra mic. We're supposed to have all these extra ones.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Tony Rinaldi, and this is a two-part question. The first part is anyone on the panel a vegan? And the second part is, would you think that, I guess, refusing to eat the processed meat would be the same as refusing to eat the processed sugars?
Okay, yeah, they didn't talk about meat. They talked a lot about sugar. This was a very targeted discussion about certain kind of foods. So does anybody want to talk about veganism
Sure.
and meat?
I am vegan. A vegan. It's kind of strange how that came to be. I am a vegan. But I don't know really why. The second part of the question has to do with the first part. Was there something about dietary choices of being a plant-based eater? I'm sorry.
It has to do with the fact that the animal agricultural industry
Right.
plays so much into
Yes.
the cheese and the milk and
Yes,
like the corn and all that.
yeah, we're taking those animals, right, and we're profitizing them, and we are creating unhealthy food. You know, I kind of heard myself say out loud when they were going through the aisle of the cheese, a lot of that cheese is not even from milk, it's from oil, you know. But, you know, a fat from an animal that's been in containment feed operation that is growing up unhealthy is just as bad, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's, as sugar. And this is why it's so important, and I'm glad you raised this, because where is our food coming from? You know, 3/4 or 90% of that video was all about processed food. And, you know, all of us were probably screaming out, where's the real food? And it was like, you know, 5% or 10% at the end. So where is the food coming from? Quality. It's all about quality. The quality of the food of a processed, you know, industrialized animal is way different than an animal that was cared for and loved and nurtured through its life and then slaughtered. I mean, we're not going to get to the philosophical thing here. We're talking about the health thing. As a personal chef, I do feed some of my clients who thrive on a minimal animal protein diet, and my family as well. I make that, you know, that choice. It's a personal thing. It has nothing really to do with what, you know, everyone else has to do or should do. But did I answer your question about
Yeah, more or less.
the sugar? Well, the sugar, yeah, it's, you know, it's not all food, even whole food is created equally.
I actually, I just want to pose an interesting thought. You could make an argument that not eating meat is actually making a choice to not eat sugar as well, because our livestock eats sugar. They eat corn mostly, and the way that corn is processed, it's basically the equivalent of sugar, which is kind of a bold and complicated statement, but I wouldn't necessarily equate it per se, but it is kind of one and the same when you look at it from a certain angle. And veganism is also, I know you touched on this a little bit, veganism is, to some people, in its truest definition, a lifestyle choice. So it's not choosing animal products. That's not just limited to food. So I'm not vegan per se. I kind of like leather boots, I'm not gonna lie, but I do choose to not eat meat and dairy products for health reasons.
And this is, thank you for your kicking us off with that question to bring up a subject that wasn't part of the film. And I will just say I see there a lot of hands that went up right away. I think we're going to have a lot of people interested in participating. So if you could take a tip like from our first question there to keep your questions concise, because I know there's a lot of people who want to participate today.
Hi. As someone who's been an advocate for decades and worked, for GMO labeling and many other things, right now my main thrust is what we can do instead. And some of the ideas are Alice Waters' edible food gardens, seed libraries, and like here, if you could have a seed library, get seeds to people. Even there's someone in schools having children grow food in jars. And also poop houses. Now, I just met a few weeks ago someone at a church in Ossining. They have 4 acres. Is there a way that we can get a group here with some funding and people? There is land, and what we're trying to do right now is initiate hoop house projects so that we can grow more food locally and really take it into our own hands and not wait for industry or the school lunches or anyone else. So these are projects that we want to be working on, and I don't know if you have anything to say. One thing that I'm not yet is a fundraiser, so I don't know how to get it off the ground, but the school, the church said they had land, they don't necessarily have money or people. They're already growing a little bit of food for needy children, but I'm just, I guess the question is, how can we get a hoop house project or more food growing happening right here locally?
So I'll take a stab at that. I learned after years and years of being unsuccessful in transforming school food that school gardens were the answer. And I failed miserably at that too, because without buy-in from a school district that, a real commitment to integrating food education into the curriculum, these gardens are really hard to sustain. It requires parents that are champions, and some of them are in this room. But I do have a happy story, and that is at Mount Kisco Child Care Center for more than 10 years now. We have been growing food and cooking food with kids. We have about 25 raised beds there. And from 18 months old all the way up to the after-school program, which goes to like 6th grade. We have a rotating collection of recipes that we cook with the kids. Last week we made, mushroom barley. We do a lot of vegan and vegetarian things because we're not really cooking meat in there. My secret goal in life is to get kids to fall in love with vegetables. And the other thing is that there are lots of community gardens. I think Ossining has an awesome community garden. I know Pleasantville has an amazing community garden that was started by a middle schooler who is growing food at a church for hungry people. So I think, that is the piece, and I think it starts small with community gardens at churches and at libraries. So that's, to me, that is the answer. That's the way around this broken system, because one of the things I see in this movie is these parallels. You know how they showed the parallel between the tobacco industry sowing those seeds of doubt and how, all the junk food is subsidized? Well, guess what? It's the same with gas and oil. We're subsidizing gas and oil, and, we're not doing the right thing. Our clean power plant has got gas, it's like low-fat chips.
I want to commend you for your work on the non-GMO activism that you're doing. I was, 2 years ago, I sat at the hearings. It was over 4 hours. I actually brought my son Derek with me. And to hear the scientific information and the case to label foods that have GMO in it. Reasonable consumers were asking for this, and the lobbying dollars and the farmers that were there in droves was astonishing. You could put the word food, you could put the word pharmaceuticals, you could put the word standardized testing, the lobbying and the dollars behind this. I want to bring up, it's really important that in this, actually I have Terry Rubinstein here, her and I serve on the wellness committee. And schools are contracted with food service companies. We have, a certain amount of children that have free and reduced food, and we have certain requirements. And we've been trying to tackle that. I've been on the wellness committee for about a year. And we're getting down to what's the selection of vendors. And we're working really hard because the real key is, what is the food source? And what are we required to do and what are we under contract? So we're working really hard there to break that. I do want to say one of the most important factors is when you push back, the consumers have to push back. And I know this is big. I mean, I just went through and I've been in my third year fighting against test prep in the classrooms and taking over our classrooms. But I got to tell you, 240,000 kids opted out of the standardized tests. And we're making some movements, and they're small shifts, but we still haven't gotten what we wanted in the classrooms. So for all 250,000 kids, but we do see movement. And what I have to also say is that there's been a lot of people in the organic food markets that are coming forward and doing really great things. And if the consumers demand it, and you can see a lot of different companies are trying to slap on organic, non-GMO on their products, it's starting to happen, but we really have to push back, and we have to...
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in a half hour. Please note the computers will be shutting down in about 15 minutes. Please save all your work.
So one of the biggest things is what we feed our kids in school, right? Our kids come to lunch every day, and what they eat. Some kids buy food, and some kids bring food. So that's been a real difficult challenge, and those are things we're really trying to work on. And Susan Rubin, you don't know, but you're like one of my heroes. 2 angry moms who really changed the face of the conversation. So, and you have made, as much as this movie is showing what we... Baby steps, but I think the awareness is much more than it's ever been. So.
Thank you. And I'll just point out that Susan Rubin was mentioning that we do have an organic garden here in Ossining, and there's a flyer on the community newsline if you would like to sign up for one of the plots. The information is out there in the hallway on your way out.
Hi, my name is Matthew Galata. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And, I think it's very important. I wish my children were here, too. I wish more children were here because I related to the boy in the story, and he said he's trying to lose weight, he's diet this, diet that, less, but it's the sugar hasn't changed, the calories, right? And then that's what the depression and not knowing what's going on. You're trying, but you're not losing the weight, right? So I was thinking like, okay, whenever I'm at these meetings and I'm at with other people, and they go, call the action. So we can complain, but what's the call to action? What are we going to try to do? So what I was thinking, field trip. So I have a kid in middle school and a kid in high school. So I know what I talked to my kids about it. So how's the lunches? So potato puffs were terrible. So I did complain when they changed the potato puffs, right? And but it's like a lot of food is getting thrown away. And then you ask the officials like, no, we're not throwing away the food. And my kids are like, no, Dad, there's a lot of food getting thrown away because the kids aren't eating because it doesn't taste good, right? So I was thinking, get it like a little group of people, go to the middle school, let's see what the kids are eating, how much is getting thrown away, right? Proactive. And go to the high school, because I have a kid there, so I want to go there. So, and then see what they're eating and see what's getting thrown away. That's number one. Number two, since my wife works and I'm not early in the morning, and the kids are going to school, so preparing the food, getting the breakfast, the eggs, the juice, right? It's not happening like I would like it to. But that's affecting them throughout the whole day, right? So what I'm thinking is that we're in this fast society, everybody's always busy. So, that could be an excuse. It's not a good excuse because we have to be more responsible. As a parent, I'm taking ownership. I have to be more responsible.
I didn't quite
and
get
the
that.
consequences, my kids are not being alert enough in school or not, their brains aren't functioning right because they're not having a quick meal in the morning because everybody's so busy. So what I would like to do is, since we're always so busy and everything like that, is partner. I'd like to talk to you about with the garden, but also maybe we can do some, I know there's food co-ops, but food's expensive. Go to Mrs. Green's, it's expensive. And it's not in my budget to do that, but it's the right thing to do. So we have all these nonprofits, we have all these people in the community like to donate. So what I'm thinking, and and just to throw it out there, is that a group of people come together, we get a location, and we have good quality food that's affordable for everyone, not just one demographic. It's for everybody, funded by whatever nonprofits or people in the community want to fund it, and we can like start there. That's it, thanks.
Let me just, go ahead, Laura. Yes, that's right.
So you were talking about probably a food cooperative, creating a community-run food store. Is that what you're thinking of in terms of retail, to, you know, beat out and not have to shop retail? It's a great idea. I know there's a group in Peekskill who are trying to put one together. It has to be run as a company is run, has to be run like a company. There's a few of us here in the room tonight that were involved in, over the years, food buying clubs, and not only, you know, a cooperative store, we did that too, but also for 20 plus years I've been involved in a buying club and co-ops and going to the farmers markets. You know, going to, you know, I say things and I don't really care, going to Whole Foods and Mrs. Green's isn't the right thing to do, because that's feeding the problem. The markup in those stores is ridiculous. And that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about, is helping people realize that good, real food is not for the privileged. And it's not for those who just, you know, can afford the 250% markups in those retail stores. And even the supermarkets, conventional supermarkets, are insane. 2 for $7 for a 1 ounce bag of chips. And helping one another is phenomenal. And there's so many ways to do it. You know, community cooking classes and bagging, you know, like Susan said, teach your child or help them learn how to cook and put their meals together. And what is your children's goals in their health? Is it to be healthy? Is it to, you know, play a sport and build their bodies, or you know, tap into what makes them excited about taking care of themselves through food? So all your ideas are great, and we should keep this dialogue going. I don't know if I really helped you with your points of your question, but.
You know, I think there are some people on either side of the room. Lauren, is there somebody on your side of the room that would like to ask a question?
Real quick, I found the film extremely informative, and I was wondering if by chance, one thing I took out of the film was the lack of knowledge of what the kids were going through as well as the adults. So here you have some kids that are very passionate and don't understand what's going on, but yet they still don't have the support from the parents. What are the chances of actually having forums like this within the schools where they can see it, experience it? It's going to be extremely powerful, because I tell you, I have no kids. But if I were in a school and I saw this film, I'd be really upset. That that you think that your kids are being taken care of. But yet this is a major epidemic that's going on that we really haven't seen the problems that will be coming from this. When they stated 1 out of 3 kids will be diabetic, that's alarming. And so my question to you is, can this be played in schools with parents? And I know it will be powerful because we're talking about corporate profits.
So way back when I started this stuff was the first year that the USCA determined that this wellness committee was needed to be set up in every school district. So we actually did this huge conference at Stone Gardens. I think this was like 2003 or something. And we had key decision makers from every one of the 43 school districts in Westchester there. And now in every school in Westchester, there is a wellness committee. The thing is that, you know, we don't just have obesity. We have learning issues. We have so many things. And allergies. Allergies have skyrocketed, and that's been my big thing too. This is not just obesity. Obesity is visible and measurable. We can see it with the naked eye, but there's allergies, there's There's learning problems, there's cancer, there's digestive issues, attention issues, all these things which are connected to the food. And yes, I think what we really need to do is we need to organize and support those wellness committees to really create public forums. And what I learned about the movie business is these movies are kind of long. And we need to make shorter ones so that we can have the dialogue afterwards. So I'm thinking like a 30-minute movie is the way to go.
But even if you did like a YouTube short synopsis and then you have that interest, then you can even watch the long version if you'd like to. But the information in front of people, I think, is the most powerful thing to do.
Thanks. I think I'm fortunate that I was born in the 40s, so I grew up with a minimum of processed food, even though my mother's, she didn't get a lot of canned stuff, but frozen vegetables, yes, but we always had salad and stuff like that. But I think what this and some of the other comments that I've heard this evening is pointing out is that we're talking about challenging the dominant paradigm in everything, because it's all connected. And when our children learn that blueberries don't come from this neck of the woods in February, they're coming from Chile, so they're traveling, their carbon footprint, everything is all connected. And the sugar in the food is one important piece, but it's only one piece. And we really need to examine all the connections and all the ways that we have to look at the issues.
Go ahead. Our audience has so much to add. Go ahead and jump in when you want to, panelists.
I remember two quick questions. A couple of years ago, I believe, or a couple long years ago, the food pyramid changed. Was that a major impact with schools? It actually made things better? Is it not? Basically, what's the current state in schools?
So here's the problem with the food pyramid and whatever the USDA is doing right now. As Marion Nessel said in the movie, there's a fundamental conflict of interest. And that is that these government agencies have to support industry, meat and dairy. And so whatever configuration of the food pyramid, I think is a healthy eating plate now, it still kind of like really doesn't support health. So that's a huge problem, and I see it in so many levels of government, is that we have these conflicts of interest, and so that it's more about jobs and that. I mean, I can tell you a funny story. Bill Clinton lives in my town, and so he and I would talk about the Farm Bill and sort of things, and so he got me connected with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. Okay, so that was partnered with the American Heart Association, which was kind of connected with the American Beverage Association. So he negotiated a deal where we got soda out of all the schools, but guess what? We put Gatorade in and vitamin water in, and the juice stayed in. And let me tell you, juice is, to me, as a retired dentist, there's nothing worse than juice. So we constantly come up with this capitalistic problem here, and that is that money is a priority before health. So that's, to me, this disturbing thing that somehow we have to find our way around that.
I remember that shift to going from soda to vitamin water.
And Snapple and all those high sugar drinks. In the movie it talked about the choices of children and when they're going in the lunchroom and they can choose, the salad that they might have, the vegetables, questionable vegetables, salad, a piece of protein, or a slice of pizza or French fries. So, really leaving it up to the kids. So while parents and community members want variety, sometimes that variety is actually a problem. In terms of how do we change the paradigm, the money that goes into the coffer of the elected officials that the lobbyists get to put pressure on, that's the problem. you'll hear a lot in this election, you're hearing it already, about campaign financing and about cleaning up what goes in and what we know goes into the campaigns of our legislators. And I think that's really key because they're beholden to money. And not all, you know, in a lot of ways you see in the US Congress, the senators, they get so much pressure. And then you see these great coalitions come together under the names of healthy names, and it's very difficult. So we don't see that happening on the local level, but we see that happening certainly in the US government.
If you're more interested in learning about food politics, there's a great book that actually Marion Nestle, who was featured in this film, wrote called Food Politics, and it goes into all the lobbying in the government that, you know, intertwines with the food industry and all the problems that have developed from that. So a great read that I recommend to everybody. Yes. And also Michael Pollan, who was featured in this film as well, wrote a great book, which is now a documentary, in defense of food. You can just learn a tremendous amount about everything that was kind of discussed in this film in more detail, just by reading those two books. And to speak of my plate, I've been a dietitian through the transition, so, you know, as much as it pains me at times to use those as teaching tools.
May I have your attention, please? The library is closing in 10 minutes. If you have any items you wish to check out,
they do kind of help. You say what you want about meat and dairy, but there is some importance to children learning what foods belong in those groups and learning about food in general. And it does very much visually have a great effect on the way children see what they're putting onto their plate. So I tend to use food models. When I use the My Plate, actual plate, portion plate, to demonstrate portion sizes and to demonstrate the importance of fruits and vegetables, which do make up half the plate. So there's a lot of pros and cons to using it as a teaching tool. I do highly prefer it to the pyramid because the pyramid kind of made it look like some foods were more important than others, and unfortunately the wrong foods. So.
And Gina, you work with the Open Door. And I neglected to mention, I talked about our grant sponsors, one of which you heard from tonight with this question in Nacolata, and we also mentioned that Down to Earth Markets, the market in downtown Ossining every week. If you are somebody who is looking for whatever is the least expensive vegetable of the week, then that is the vegetable that's growing a lot, particularly from spring all the way through fall. And if you're willing to eat zucchini for a month, it's not expensive. So it's a matter of, there are some food choices, and Ossining Market does a really good job at having a broad spectrum of our population that shops there regularly. And I want to say, Gina, you work with the Open Door, and the Open Door is our screening sponsor for this program, so I'm really pleased to have them help bring this film to the community. And I'm really sorry that we're running out of time, and I hate to do this, but I do want to give you one thought that I had that picks up on some of the ideas that you had. I'm the mayor of Ossining. When I was a trustee, I did a 2-day training on how to write a grant. And what I chose for my project was so much to do with this film. It was what could we do in the Ossining community that would increase people's accessibility to walking, to create more greenways, and to incorporate more community gardens in the downtown where people live, people who don't have access to cars, because right now our community garden is out in the town. And my idea that I wrote up was to work with the Open Door, because we need some quantitative data to identify. We have a population that's particularly prone to diabetes here. They talked about 1 in 3, 1 in 2 Latino children that's born today is going to develop diabetes. And that is more than half of, and people who are living in poverty are more likely to develop diabetes. We have over 50% free and reduced lunch in Ossining. We have an incredibly, population that's incredibly predisposed to having a lot of these conditions. And I just seen Chelsea Clinton a couple of years ago talk about the Clinton Foundation. They want to, supposedly deal with these kind of issues. And I thought that President Clinton would be very pleased to fund this grant. So if somebody wants to help me write it and then wants to lead the grant, I would love to renew that idea. And with that, I have to say, I'd like to turn over the mic to our panelists and say please give us your final thoughts. And I think that everybody, if you would please continue the conversation either online, on our Facebook page, and reach out to some of the organizations on the takeaway. So please.
Okay. I've been practicing for just about 10 years now, and the thing that I hear from most of the patients that I see, regardless of age and their background, is that they don't have the time to cook healthy food, to read food labels, whatever, exercise, whatever the case is. And what I want to leave you with is that the same thing that I say to everybody, that you get one body in your life, and it's literally the best investment that you can make is to invest in your health. So please just take whatever you do out of tonight, but take something seriously. That it's very difficult to make healthy choices in a lot of situations, and you do have to take an active role in making those good decisions every day.
Really just echoing what everybody has said on the panel already, and I think it is time. I don't know if the woman, I think she's left, the GMO activist. We really have to call upon our elected officials, and I think we can make a change. I mean, you're still going to have commercials, you're still going to drive by, you're going to see all these places that have these foods, and it's really addictive. And I battle it with it in my family. My cousin had lap band surgery and died from it as a side effect because she dealt with obesity and was addicted to food. And so I think as we address these issues, and I kind of whispered over to Susan that we make a really important move in our schools to talk about bullying, and we show and we try to be preventative, and I think we've done a great job there. I think in terms, you heard about the tobacco industry, yes, people are still smoking. Cigarettes are, it's so expensive, but people are still buying them, but it has reduced in the high school population smoking. So if we continue to get that into the schools and do short videos and make it a priority, and I think we will be able to change how we contract with food service companies, because really when we have the ability to just get that good food in the schools, that is breakfast and lunch for a lot of children. That's huge for P through 12. So if we can get that done, that would be really great. So we have, as consumers and as parents and community members, we have to start stepping up and asking them of our officials.
So I believe that the system is pretty broken, so to go outside the system and just grow some food. I did this thing this year with kale. I grew kale everywhere at the child care center, my community garden, and then just like in a little thing on my deck. And you know what? I still have kale.
It grows all winter.
It grows all winter. It gets better in the winter, and it's fast food. So I'll go out there and I'll cut some kale and I'll saute it up and I'll throw an egg on top. Bingo, fast food. So pays better dividends than any stock on Wall Street. So just get one food and start growing it. Go outside the system.
Makes great chips too.
Yes.
Yes, vote with your dollars. Shop at the farmer's market. The money goes directly to the farmer who grew your food. Know who grows your food. And it's hard work, I do it for a living, but, before I did Culinary, I did it for my life. Either spend it on the food or in the doctor's office, So, if anybody ever needs help with anything in terms of the wellness committee, I've been on wellness committees for 15 plus years. The food debacle in the schools is very minor changes, but through that whole experience, you need community involvement. The schools will only move if you have people in numbers. When it's one or two people, it's rough. And just, if it means a lot to you and you're passionate about it, you're passionate about where your food comes from, you because like you said, it's all encompassing. It's the earth, it's the sustainability of our ecological system, it's everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you to all of you. On your way out, please make sure you grab the bookmark so you know how to join us for the next 2 months and grab a Take Action Now. And if everybody from the committee could quickly get up on the stage.
Yeah.